What's going on, everybody in H-Town and Houston Rockets fans all over the world, NBA fans all over the world, no matter where you are? Thanks so much for watching today's episode of Rockets Daily. My name is David Delano. I'm going to be your host. This is brought to you by FanArch. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. That way you're notified every time a video is dropped. I know that there's a lot of content in the NBA out there, a lot of Houston Rockets content. A lot of the same stories circling around, and obviously we want to make sure that we touch on the stories that are true, the stories that are relevant. We're not going to ignore any of those. We're also going to be looking to find different stories that aren't just too irrelevant. Obviously, we want to throw out some different trade scenarios and things like that, but we still want to do our best to find realistic situations and things that actually pertain to your Houston Rockets. Hope everybody is doing well out there. Been a lot of rain in Houston, Texas lately, and obviously you know how this city is, how this area is. Some of you guys may be completely unfazed. Some may have had some flooding. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody has power, and thanks so much for locking in with me today. Few different things I want to go ahead and talk about on today's episode. We're going to talk about this NBA Finals a little bit between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the reason we're going to talk about that, obviously, the Rockets having the second best record in the West during the regular season. It's a copycat league. Teams are going to be building their team to see what they need to do to beat Oklahoma City, to beat Indiana. That's just how it works. You go to the finals. Teams come in the next year trying to figure out at least how they can fine-tune their roster to beat you and take you down for next season. So we're going to talk about how the Rockets compare to the teams in the NBA Finals and how they've compared to Houston Rockets championships of the past as we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the 1995 championship. And also talk about some NBA draft options potentially there for the Rockets at number 10. Also, we're going to go ahead and, talking about it all the time, but, the national media, everybody's talking about it, and obviously they're going to continue to talk about it. And we're also going to continue to talk about Kevin Durant as well until we find out where he is, where he's going to be going, because obviously, Kevin Durant is a huge piece out there, and it's something that we just really cannot ignore during this offseason. And is it time to start talking about the Jaylen Brown stuff again? There was some stuff circling out there, Bill Simmons put out about, a few weeks ago, and it's still alive. And until, there's a reason to kill some of these rumors, NBA Finals is still going on. So until that concludes, until a lot of these transactions happen, until we get to the NBA draft and all the free agent pieces have been settled and a lot of the craziness has happened, and until we get into next season, a lot of these rumors are going to just continue to be out there, and we're going to have to go ahead and address those. All right, so first of all, let's go ahead and look at this NBA Finals right now between the Indiana Pacers, Oklahoma City Thunder, and kind of also looking at your Houston Rockets and some things that you may need to do to work this out. So a couple things, just looking back at the 94 championship team here in Houston and 95 championship team. 1994 beat the New York Knicks in 7 games. That team was second in the NBA in defensive efficiency, beat the Knicks, who were actually number 1 in defensive efficiency. Now that team was just 15th in offensive efficiency that year. And then in 1995, that was a little bit of, that season was down for most of the year. Entered the playoffs as a 6th seed, just 12th in defensive rating, but 7th in offense. But, looking back, obviously the three-point shooting volume was not where it is now, but those teams really get underrated. I know people talk so much about the time when Michael Jordan took a break for those 2 years, but those teams, as far as spreading the floor with shooters around Hakeem Olajuwon, really did start to, in my opinion, and stats and data back it a bit too, as far as with the increased three-point shooting, leading to eventually, over time, the evolution of three-point shooting. So now, when we look at this NBA Finals and also looking at the Rockets, This team right now, obviously, we talk about it. This roster as constructed is not revolutionary three-point shooting wise, and that's really a big weakness. This current Houston Rockets team this season was fourth in the NBA in defensive rating. Now, you look at what you're comparing yourself to. Oklahoma City Thunder, actually number one team in the NBA during the regular season in defensive rating. Indiana Pacers just 14th. They were just the fourth seed, though, in the Eastern Conference, and they're making this run. But you look at three-pointers made per game. Oklahoma City Thunder, 6th in the NBA, making 14.5. Indiana Pacers, 16th, making 13.2, although they do shoot at a higher clip. They've been shooting at an amazing clip in the playoffs, over 40% from three-point range. Rockets just 22nd in made threes per game, 12.7. And you look at the Thunder, 37.4% from three-point range. Pacers, 36.9%. They don't shoot as many threes. They don't gun during the regular season on the threes as much as people may think. Now, Rockets just 35.3%, and that's a pretty substantial drop-off. So, 20th in offensive rating for the Houston Rockets this season, 9th for the Pacers, 3rd for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, defense is right there, but pretty substantially behind the Thunder and Pacers when it comes to offensive rating, really behind the other contenders. And even when you look at, the 94 Rockets, with an offensive rating of 15th, which was not drastically high, number 2 in defense. And I know that was a different time, but still much higher than this. And we look at the 95 team that, ended up sweeping the Orlando Magic. Still was 7th in offensive efficiency that year. So, big thing, the obvious thing, right? The thing that we all obviously know is that we know how can this team improve offensively without taking a step back defensively? How can you get three-point shooters without really disrupting the core that's going to give you an immediate impact on the future? And I know Jaylen Green is somebody who's been, talked about a lot. He's kind of been picked on a little bit as of late. But when you look at it, I mean, there's only as far as when you look at guys who are available, how many guys out there are really going to increase your offensive ability without giving you a step back on the defensive end? And as we look here, first thing, if the Rockets even keep the pick, I know that there's so many different trade scenarios out there in the NBA draft, and most people, especially if you're talking about Giannis, you're talking about Kevin Durant, talk about Jaylen Brown a little bit later, no matter who you're talking about, that number 10 pick, you could trade away future picks, but people want something in the immediate future. So that number 10 pick, there's so many different options and scenarios out there about the Rockets dealing it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think that the Rockets are going to keep this pick, but we do have to talk about it a little bit because that's one way that you could try to improve this team immediately without giving anything up. Now, when you look at this draft, it's hard to imagine, though, especially when you're already a team in title contention, who's going to be able to immediately impact and immediately upgrade your roster. And first thing that we're looking at, and we're seeing that Kasparikis Yakachonis for Illinois, he's a name. I wonder if he comes to Houston, are we just going to call him Jock? But he's a name, though, that I see circulating in a lot of different mock drafts as far as potentially coming to the Rockets. 6'6", from Lithuania, played 1 year at Illinois, 15 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game, 4.7 assists. Now, he shot just under 32% from three, 31.8% from three-point range, and that's the college three. He started off the season shooting well from three-point range. It faded later on. Questions whether he was really 100% as he was playing. Did not shoot well from three-point range in the NCAA tournament. He definitely has nice size, combo guard, can play point guard, or he can also play the two. Few weaknesses, he pretty turnover prone, high turnover rate. Sometimes has some issues creating his own shot without coming off of screens. I do think that he could definitely be an efficient player in the NBA long term. I do think, though, he's going to have to spend some time in the G League. You look at this roster, Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepherd. Is he really someone who's going to have a bigger impact than them next season or even beyond that? Probably not. So, Jacques Jonas, he's got some NBA comparisons to Kendall Marshall. We'll see. He's obviously going to have to improve on creating his own shot. But if you're looking for immediate three-point relief, this is a guy that I think maybe 3 years down the line can improve this team. Gives you some assets to stack, but I don't think he's going to be a difference maker right away. And talk about one other prospect here. There's other ones out here, but another one, Colin Murray Boyles for South Carolina, could be a very intriguing prospect. Averaged 16.8 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, and a 58.6 shooting percentage, 58.6 field goal percentage from the floor. Now, some issues with him. I don't necessarily want to say issues, but a lot of it is really going to depend on he has limited range. He's not going to improve this team three-point shooting-wise at all. I believe he made less than 10 threes in his 2 seasons at South Carolina. He's got some comparisons to Aaron Gordon, which would be nice, but Ben Simmons, Jared Vanderbilt, Julius Randle, even Draymond Green. So a little bit all over the place. Definitely somebody who's going to have to contribute with his effort, athleticism. He's got a lot of that, but he's not going to spread the floor. Probably would fit in really nice with this team as far as defensively. He's probably going to be a safer option than Jacques Jonas if you're looking for somebody who can contribute at least defensively, give you some significant minutes, maybe even kind of play that Trace Jackson Davis type role that who plays for the Golden State Warriors. But I think that the upside long term is higher with Jacques Jonas. Murray Boyles, I think he could really be a nice player for this team, but he does not improve your outside shooting at all. And when you look at Steven Adams coming back, we're going to continue to build around Şengün, some of the other players on this team. You start to have a little bit of just start to clog the inside just a little bit as far as when it comes to spreading the floor. Even, Jalen Green, Thompson, giving them space to create. So that's going to be an interesting scenario. And obviously, neither one of these guys, and there's more options out there. These are just two of the bigger names that's more likely names that I'm seeing, at least as of to date, that seem like they could be options here at number 10. So that's also why it's possible that this pick could be dealt, because there's really no clear immediate upside, and when you're looking at or guaranteed upside, and that's why, of course, it all comes down to when you look at immediate upside, Kevin Durant. We talk about the three-point shooting struggling. It's really, once you start to get to that over 36, over 37% three-point shooting territory in the NBA, guys who play both sides of the court, both sides of the floor, it gets a little difficult. But Kevin Durant, somebody who has not had those struggles, shot 43% from three-point range last season, 39% from his career. Kevin Durant's never averaged less than 25 points per game since his rookie season. There's the multiple scoring champ, MVP, NBA champ. Obviously, an instant fit gives the Rockets a much better ceiling offensively. You can play on the ball, off the ball. Really one of the greatest all-time offensively. Now, there are some cons, though, when you look at Kevin Durant over the last few seasons, 55 games, 47 games, 62 games, 3 out of his last 5 seasons. And also when you look at the team defensive ratings that he's been on, now the lower the number, the better for the defensive rating. Career defensive rating of 107.4. Now, he had a career worst, about 118 last season. Season prior to that in the 114 range. So coming off of the worst 2 years as far as the teams that he's been on defensively. Now, the Rockets obviously have a much better defensive system around than the Phoenix Suns do, but Kevin Durant's also getting up there in age, and he's also somebody that, probably looking at missing at least 15 to 20 games, best case scenario. Obviously, you've got him in there for the playoffs, for the championship. But I really want to know how you guys feel about Kevin Durant. I know a lot of people don't feel like he's a leader. He does seem like somebody who likes to kind of lead more by example. He's going to go out there, he's going to get his 30. But, is he really a vocal leader? But do you need that? With Udoka and the other players on this team, Van Fleet, Dylan Brooks, you've got a lot of good leadership there. You need somebody who can go and get buckets. Now the question is, how much leadership are you going to have to give up for Kevin Durant? So go ahead and leave in the comments whether or not you want Kevin Durant, whether you don't. And even if you're sick of hearing about it, obviously we're going to have to keep talking about it, but until something happens. But go ahead and let us know that as well. And then a final thing that we're going to get into for today, we're going to talk about Jaylen Brown, which I just have to be completely honest. I don't see this happening. I really don't see this happening. But it is another option out there. A lot of, with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, questions on who's the alpha over there. Now, this is a big contract for Jaylen Brown. Back in July of 2023, he signed a contract just under $304 million for 5 years, super max. He's under contract till the end of the 2028-29 season. So if you get Jaylen Brown in a trade, he's definitely going to limit your future financial flexibility when you start looking at like Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, even Şengün and Jalen Green. Now, Bill Simmons proposed this trade on his podcast not too long ago where, this is just Bill Simmons throwing this out there. He said the Boston Celtics receive Fred VanVleet, Jabari Smith Jr., and Tari Eason. So obviously that so much for the long-term flexibility of signing them, because you've got to give something up. So VanVleet, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, and the number 10 pick, which we just talked about. And in return, the Rockets received Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday. Now, who says no to this? I don't think that the Celtics do this. I think that for the Rockets, I think it's worth a shot. I think if you're Houston, you do this trade. I know that in H-Town here, I don't know if this would really be the sexiest trade. And I know some people may not like this, but lived in a lot of different places, lived in the Midwest, and the fan base is a little bit different in different places, even compared to, obviously, Boston. They are insane. I don't know if this trade would go over well in Boston, trading Jaylen Brown for VanVleet, Jabari Smith, and Eason, and a number 10 pick that, there's really no slam dunk guarantees at number 10. And in Houston with the fan base, obviously Houston likes winners, rallying around the Astros, and even with the Rockets, was at that game 5, we're down 3-1, and I really just didn't feel. It's almost like it didn't really feel like the fan base for the most part, and the people watching this, if you're watching this, you may disagree, because if you're watching this, you're probably a hardcore fan, but didn't really feel like the fan base really believed, for the most part, that the Rockets were going to beat the Warriors until you got to that Game 7, and then that died quickly. But the energy, I felt, was a little lacking for how strong this team was last season. I still don't think a lot of the fans really believed that you could win the championship, and having a first round exit, it's hard to blame them. So when you bring Jaylen Brown, obviously a NBA champion, but he could be a better fit for this team, reuniting with Udoka than Giannis or Kevin Durant. But is he really going to excite the fan base? But at the end of the day, what's really going to excite the fan base is winning a championship, and if he can get that done, then it's all good. Now, a couple concerns with Jaylen Brown. High volume three-point shooter, but not a high percentage three-point shooter. But he shot under 33% for the season. 32.4% last season from three. Now just under 36% from his career. So maybe with that high volume, chucked up some threes that maybe weren't the best looks, but not really an elite three-point shooter. Not really, obviously, a better player than Jalen Green, but Not really much of an upgrade there, 3-point shooting wise, which, like I said, this is just a trade proposed to, by Bill Simmons. But then you wonder, how does, Jalen Green, Jaylen Brown, Shane Goon, you're glad to still have all of them on the roster, but how does that mesh? So that's definitely something to talk about. I think Brown definitely, though, would bring that winning mentality to Houston and along with Drew Holiday too, really one of the most underrated players. He's getting older as well, but definitely a strong chemistry guy. Would I think kind of wash out that losing Van Fleet, not to discredit his leadership, but I don't think that it's worth talking about. Let me know if you even think that this is something that could happen. I don't think that the Boston Celtics do this trade. So let me know what you guys think, of course, and make sure to go ahead, like and subscribe. Make any comments that you'd like. I'll definitely dive into those and try to give you guys the best content that we possibly can. Thanks so much for watching Rockets Daily, brought to you by FanArch. Everybody have a great